Cool. We are recording. Dan, you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Oh dear. Hello, I'm Daniel Crosier. I think that's my name. As you can see, my hairline starts at the very tip top of my head. And what do? I am an illustrator, visual artist. I work a lot in the comic book field, do murals, sculpture, work on film productions, script work, writing. Yeah, I think that's enough, right? It seems I do interviews too, you know, not unlike TK here.
Filmmaking, interviews.
A little bit of filmmaking, a little bit of interviews, yeah. Just a little bit of things. I drink coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, you know, and I like to keep things evil.
I drink a lot of coffee. Let's talk a little bit about that. You do a lot of really cool things.
Well, thanks. Tamika, so do you. You do a lot of cool things too. You do an amazing amount of writing, and you're doing a bunch of interviews during this time of COVID, this time of pandemic. Oh, for some reason the camera isn't going back to you. Nope. But anyway.
Are you buzzing my Zoom?
Am I buzzing your Zoom? I hope not. You know, what does that mean? What are you insinuating?
Nothing at all. So, like, I wanted to talk about your work in horror a little bit.
Okay.
You've done like special effects. A little bit. And I remember this book you made once. Was it the Necronomicon cover? I just realized that the other day, because I was like, yeah, you made the book with the flesh and blah blah blah, and then I watched that movie 2 nights ago. And I was like, oh shit, that's what that was.
Evil Dead. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that book was Distortions Unlimited. There's an animatronic company in Greeley, Colorado called Distortions.
Okay.
And you know, a few years ago, like around 2011 to 2013, they had their own TV show on Travel Channel, and it was called Making Monsters. Mm-hmm. But before then, a little bit more backstory. I had grown up around this company since I was a wee little kid. You know, it's owned by Ed Edmonds, and he's a good friend of mine, and his wife Marcia. They're wonderful people. But when I was like 6 or so, I don't know how old I was. I would, because we were actually just 2 blocks away from my house in a little podunk farming community called Kersey, Colorado, and their first studio was like a block and a half away, and I would go over there and dumpster dive at that young age. Okay. And steal their nasty latex rejects and everything, and Ed would catch me and scold me. So I remind him of that every now and then. And he's very sweet, and he apologizes. He's like, "Oh, I didn't realize I did that." It's like, "Yes, you made me cry." but yeah, back in around the mid the first decade of the 2000s, I was going up to Distortions and purchasing liquid latex wholesale. Because I was casting these big, costume pieces for our OFM group. I had a stage performance group called OFM. It stood for OdAm Mood, which has no meaning whatsoever, but it was a stage combat performance.
Oh, that's fun.
So it was basically GWAR, but with contact violence on stage. And we'd have a band that would provide the musical score. It was basically this play on tyranny, because back then I was doing political commentary on the Bush administration. So that's kind of where that came from. But I was also, getting into other forms of storytelling, which was comic books, and I just gotten done illustrating my first comic book series called Bartholomew the Scissors, and I was coming off of that, and I pitched Ed about doing a Distortions Unlimited series based off their catalog of monsters and ghoulies, and so they signed off on that, and I illustrated that, and when we were able to collect the whole book, of course, the natural thing was to do a latex cast slip sleeve cover for that book, which looks very much like the Necronomicon. That was a huge influence.
I know. I only had $20 that day, and you had 2 of those books, and I wanted one so bad, and I was just like, I'm just gonna have to just really remember it and appreciate it for the rest of my life, because I thought it was really beautiful and well done. I thought it was really cool. No, we didn't know each other that well.
Okay.
It was just at one of the
that's
it might
true.
have been the first Comic-Con or something, or it was in that time. I feel like it was around then, so that was a long time ago already. That's crazy.
Well, I still have those, so I will get you.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. The mold, I have to repair. I'm repairing it. So it's interesting, teaching yourself how to fix plaster molds, because it's since broken. I made some stupid things, and thinking that you could cast latex paint. Boys and girls at home, you cannot cast latex paint. You can take liquid latex, which has a different chemical compound. It's still latex, but it's more malleable and has more forgiveness and flexibility, especially when it dries. Latex paint does not. It just doesn't. It's more rigid. So I tried pulling that. You thinking hey, I'm so smart and clever. I'm not that clever. I'm stupid. But now I know better. And,
but we learned by.
Yeah, you learn by making mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing too, that I think it's starting to become a little bit more common knowledge, but it's interesting to see that people don't allow for mistakes. It's like mistakes should be allowed for, in everything you do.
Yeah.
There should be that at least that blanket to catch you if you make a really big mistake. But I think especially in art as well as in life, you should allow for yourself to make beautiful mistakes.
Absolutely.
I tend to look at everything I do as just gorgeous mistakes. You've seen my artwork now where I lay down thousands and thousands of lines because I'm very OCD.
I was wondering if you could show some, because I have one from some of the movies you did for oh my gosh, my brain.
Like the movie posters?
Before they said y'all couldn't do it.
Right. Let me see what I've got. Oh, you know what? Okay. Here's a fun one.
Your style is very unique, so yes.
Ah! So here's a big tree frog one that I did, just a little while ago. But yeah, you can see the amount of detail. It's pretty nuts. This probably only took me maybe 10 hours, so it went really fast.
Oh.
But sometimes it takes me 20, 22, 24 hours depending on the project.
Right.
And then painting in murals like that, is it's a lot faster because I scale up the tools. So
Okay.
usually painting with brushes that are at least an inch wide, you know, the brush itself. So so it goes, you know, I can scale up and kind of cheat things and make it look like there's a lot of lines, but not nearly as much as like when I'm doing, you know, pen and ink on a smaller surface, because
Right.
then I can afford to get a lot more intimate, so to speak.
Do you do a lot of wood burning?
I used to do a lot of wood burning when I started out doing comic books. And back then I was, as far as I know, I was the only wood burning comic book artist. And I would, you know, I would draw on lumber. Like the first series that I did, Bartholomew the Scissors, that was a horror series. It was a lot of mixed media. Since it was my first series and I'd never done a book like that before, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was learning on the fly. You know, and keep in mind my background in fine art is more like gallery art, you know, and sculpture, to be more specific. So I was applying, you know, illustrated elements to like three-dimensional pieces, and then eventually I segued into doing sequential art on lumber and wood. So with Bartholomew the Scissors, I was, you know, it was mixed media, so it was like ink, colored pencil, graphite, and then wood burned elements too, and kind of accentuating that. And then I would do like, you know, complete wood burned pen-ups for like something like Tim Seeley's Hack Slash series, and Andy Kuhn and Phil Hester's Fire Breather. I did some, I think for that one I even took a torch and you know, charred the wood. That was fun. Anytime you can play with fire. When it's safe, kids, when it's safe. And there's an adult. It's fun. Yeah.
And those all turned out so beautiful too. I've just always really liked that work. I didn't realize, I always wondered how long it took too. So that's interesting that you're saying 10 hours. That's fast.
Oh, thanks. Well, yeah, for something like that, once you get the yeah, the tough thing is the animal, the you know, the design of the animal, and everything. And yeah, in this case, the tree frog. The comic book stuff can be, you know, it can be longer or it can be shorter. It just depends on the page layout and how you're trying to tell your story.
Yeah.
If I'm doing like movie poster stuff, like I've got a you know, when Mad Max Fury Road came out, you know, like, oh my God, I love that movie. That movie's awesome. So awesome. But I did a little movie poster thing for, I think, was it Poster Spy or something like that? And so I did all these heads, and this was before the movie came out, so all that was available. There's no trailer either. There's just these stills of the movie. It's like, wow, all these people look interesting. So so I just, you know, kind of put them all together, and I you got to sit there and get these likenesses of these actors and their makeups and how they look in that still, you know, to work and flow. That takes a lot of time. I think that one was like 24 hours. And then, you know, I know many more artists that, you know, sometimes they work, you know, 70 to 100 hours per piece. Right. Zach Howard, for example, I don't know if you know Zach, but he just did the Hellboy series with Mike Mignola, the most recent one that just came out. It's like a 2 issues. And I was asking him, it's like, you know, how long does it take you to do a page? Because he is way detailed. I mean, it is just inundated with texture and information and just remarkable mark making. He's like, yeah, 70 hours. I'm like, holy crap. It's like,
Yeah.
how does, it's like, I can't, so, you know, I don't know, maybe the layperson looks at what I do, it's like, wow, that's a lot of information. I was like, yeah, but look at this guy. It's like, I don't know how he does it. I can't, I'd have to sit with him for that 70 hours to figure out like what and why. But yeah, I've also talked to like artists that do paper folding, and sometimes a piece, you know, for them takes 70 hours because you're figuring out like mathematically how to do all these folds and, you know, how to make strategic cuts and everything. And it's just like, I'm sure a lot of that can be also accounted for those, you know, problem solving, you know, figuring out, you know, those problems, or if a mistake arises, do you keep the mistake, or do you go back and start over or something? For me, if there's like an actual thing that I lay down, I'm like, I can't keep this mark, it's wood. I get the sander, you know, it's like, yeah, we start over, you know, something like that. But I haven't done that. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've grabbed my sander for that purpose in at least 6 or 7 years, you know. Whatever I lay down, I've figured out how to use. And you know, the nice thing is I can cheat by putting down more lines to make it look like, oh, it's very intentional, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun to talk to patrons of the arts and everything, and like, wow, look at all the, you know, how specific each line is. It's not. It's really not. It's just whatever I felt like in the moment. I don't really overplan anything. Comic books, you know, if I'm doing an interior, yeah, I've got a plan. You know, I've got to figure out how the story works and how, you know, the panels transition, and, you know, not only from panel to panel but page to page. It's like, does this look like it's going to work? You know, does it work in one continuous composition on a wall, and then can it also work, you know, in an artifact that you hold in your hand and flip page by page too? You know, the digital thing too is something to consider, and I think I'm slow to that game in terms of like comics, you know, digital comics on like Comixologies or Webtoons, which is the big South Korean platform. And you know, how does panel by panel look, you know, in what I'm doing? How does that work on there too? So those are all things to kind of consider. But at the same time, I mean, it sounds daunting. It's really not. You know, you're just like, yeah, throw all that out the door. Let's get the flamethrowers. Let's go. Let's get to work.
I love that you're talking about this, especially about the time it takes to like create even like a small piece, like a panel, even in a comic book. Because I think that's something a lot of people don't think about. I know I didn't necessarily think about it. I mean, as a writer, right? There's that fight between illustrators and writers. Like, we spend a shit ton of time on our shit, and you can just write it in so much time. And I'm like, but writing is pretty labor intensive. You know, that's where I was coming from at first. So this helps me to understand even more. And then of course, if you look at any comic book or graphic novel, like, the art in so many of them is just so amazing. And just like, if you've ever sat with an artist and like, you know, gotten the privilege of watching them work, you know, it takes time. It's kind of painstaking work and stuff. So it's really cool to hear like actual numbers of like what it takes, you know, to make these pieces. And sometimes like the pieces are, from what I understand, very large, so that the detail scales correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a couple projects where I've, you know, worked on with friends, kind of in a collaborative setting. And so what that, you know, what that tends to mean is, you know, there's no pay. So you know, yeah, so you got to really manage your time. And I've gotten a little bit better about that, you know, at least in the last year or so. So, what I end up doing is taking, if I'm working on wood, taking a piece of wood that's the size of what the printed page is going to be, and just illustrating off of that. And not to deter from the storytelling, but because budgeting time and storytelling, I'll sit there and especially with horror, because that's usually what I get asked to do if I'm working with somebody else. And horror is incredibly forgiving, and it's such a malleable genre. I find that I can, in my style, I can make it very, I can make it flow, I can make it relate to the story, and it can also become relatively esoteric. So I can by that, I can set up the composition, make sure things flow, make sure it's readable, and then at the same time, make sure it's artful, and it also can save on time and application, so that I can get to the gig that it
pays the rent.
Yeah, man, that sounds really arrogant, doesn't it? But
it doesn't though. It's real.
It's true. It's because I think as artists we get inundated with a project, and either you're really passionate for, and you want to really just go gun ho into it. Maybe that's an amazing thing and everything. But if you're like working with somebody else on somebody else's project too, you don't want to be taken advantage of, but you still want to deliver the goods, especially if everything's on good terms. So, but time management is something that we need to be conscious of. And before, like I never really, thought of it that much, but I think it's recently especially with my girlfriend Elise, that we've really had to consider stuff like that, and because nowadays the main project for me when it comes to comics is the project that she and I have, and it's a children's sci-fi comedy adventure.
Oh, rad!
Yeah, so it's called Stanley Kaiju, and it's about this. Yeah, the story is great. It's so simple, and I think I get a kick out of it. So I think kids will get a kick out of it because I think they're smarter than me, and it's just about this little. It starts out as a little creature, and it's wears a pink bunny suit and everything, and it's this defender of the earth. And every time a pizza sliced alien spaceship comes into the atmosphere, it grows to giant proportions, and it swipes it out of the sky and eats it like a pizza pie. And then it's
yummy.
But in order to shrink back down, it's got to poop it out. So the size conversion doesn't work, with foreign material. So it's got to poop it out, and then it can shrink down, and all that. So that's essentially the story. That is the premise.
That is a lot of fun.
Oh,
when is that going to be finished?
Well, so Elise and I are working with our colorist Kevin Waltz. He's a local artist. He's wonderful. We've been, Elise is the writer. She's got this, wonderful, bouncing ball script, and Kevin's amazing to work with. And then we're just kind of working away. We've got a lot of other things that are kind of distracting us, so we're chipping away. But Elise is already writing the follow-up issue. We've been writing, Elise has been writing short stories for Birdie as well.
Oh, cool.
Based on Stanley Kaiju. And so that's been fun. She's working on the next one for Birdie as well. And not sure when that'll be published, but I think that's a fun departure because, you know, we got the comic book, it's specifically geared towards kids. And then her short form prose, you know, published in Birdie, that it's a little bit more expansive and kind of comes from different perspectives, you know, outside the main cast of characters, you know, in the book. So it's been fun. And since I've got nieces and nephews, they really can't, I wouldn't allow them to read anything I've made up until this point. So, you know, this would be something that
you're like, here's the
yeah, it's like here's something with blood and guts. It's about life. You gotta learn about it sometime, right kids? It's like, nah.
This is gonna make Christmases easier for a minute.
right. It's like, yeah, so that's been pretty fun. But yeah, it's one of those properties too that you start thinking about. It's like, oh, you know, you really want to think about merchandise and kind of the macro. It's like, this is something that we feel very confident that could also be like an animated series, could be toys, could be merch. I don't know.
That's cool.
You know, so right now that's where our wheels, you know, in our noggins are turning. Is to that. And it's I find it to be fun. So hopefully, kids will. Like I said, you know, I'm basically just a giant balding kid. So
I think this sounds fantastic. I have a question for you. Because you said your kind of past experience was in kind of galleries, gallery mindset, and that's an absolutely different world. Like you know, like most of the time, don't touch it. Like I have an art conservator friend, and they were talking about how like the place they were working, I can't say too much because I'll get in trouble, but the place they were working, they were trying to sell something that would have essentially been worthless because there were fingerprints on it that they didn't take care of. So they were going to try to sell it for some exorbitant amount of money. And so like 5-10 years from now, those fingerprints are going to become visible, like actually visible, not just under the oils. Yeah, and I think it also degrades the art in some way too. And so and then of course, like I got to work a little bit with like Cabal Gallery, and Cabal Gallery is all about like, you know, interaction and yeah, and just kind of like the stuff you don't see in galleries, you saw it at Cabal, and often it's very dark and also very fun. Like play is very important. And so like that's the feeling I get from your work. It's just like it's very tactile. It's very fun, and it enters into that dark place too. And then also, I'm getting to the question. Like I started steering away from it.
That's okay. That's okay. But I like. What were you doing? We're meandering. Whoa!
I was wondering when you were gonna do that. But like.
Okay, I killed that fucking squirrel. What is that? What we're talking about?
Squirrel. So what I'm curious about.
Squirrel.
What I'm curious about is like how that experience like informs the work you do. I also see you as someone who's very community minded, probably takes the back seat sometimes, if not a lot, because I feel your work is phenomenal. Just like, gosh, what is my question? My question is like, how does that gallery experience affect, like, you know, you're talking about time management and you're talking about kind of like all these other associations and stuff. And I feel like a lot of artists don't have that. So like, how do you bridge the gap to make it work so that you can pay the bills and you can also do the fun, amazing work that you want to do? Yeah.
Well, so as far as the gallery work stuff goes, and you know, I don't know, that's kind of a tough one. Yeah, like before, you know, going through art school, like I'm a graduate of Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, and you know, I graduated with a sculpting background. So my degree is in sculpting. You know, through that I learned materials integrity. so with that, like when I was doing sculpture, I loved it when people would touch stuff. You know, if it fell over on them, you know, that you know, I would feel bad. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's, you know, I'm not doing anything ridiculous or sanitation wise. I like the idea of people interacting with stuff. As far as doing a gallery show, you know, having the art meet you know, commerce, that's still something I've never quite, you know, been able to comfortably, you know, figure out. I think a lot of artists have a problem with that. Two, I noticed, you know, a lot of my friends will, you know, whatever the flavor of the month is, they'll do the fan art thing, which is really prevalent in you know, the comic book world. You know, it's like we'll do a Deadpool, or we'll be you know, clever, and maybe, you know, Chadwick Boseman passed away, and there's a lot of you know, tributes you know, going out, being created for him, and you know, I'm one of those too that would like to include, but at the same time, you know, there, you know, is there an element of, you know, people taking advantage of that, creating a piece of art and selling that print, you know, does it become exploited? So you know, when those moments come, I you know, as much as I was like, yeah, I do want to, because I admire that person and I like him, but at the same time, I see so many of this being inundated. And I did have like a Black Panther piece that I did, you know, a couple years ago. So I just like shared that, you know, I'm not selling that or anything. I'm just like, hey, you know, I like this guy. He should be remembered. He meant so much to so many people. So there's that aspect. But the real big thing is in art school, and I don't know if it's changed too much. When I talk to, and I still talk to my old you know, art teachers from back then, you know, we'll talk about how business needs to be incorporated with art.
Yes.
They were so focused on the craft and the mindset and the philosophies behind it, which is amazing. Because without that, I probably wouldn't be where I am now. Actually, I'd probably be more productive, because just be drawing, and that's all I would know. But anyway, but it wouldn't have opened me up to all these other avenues. You know, maybe I would have, you know, found them, you know, in my own meandering way eventually. But, you know, in that environment, like every day, you're like, here's something new, you know, learn this, welding, chainsaw, how do you make this creative? If you take a torch to this plexiglass, you know, you can make a cone because you're heating it up and you're stretchy, and, you know, it's like, hey, this is not the way it's supposed to be, you know, meant to work, or was designed to work, but that's where the innovation comes in. So there's that aspect. But the business aspect is like, hey, if you want to do freelance, if you want to live as a fine artist and that's all you do, you definitely should consider having some kind of business background. And that includes accounting, maybe learning, you know, tax law, learning copyright law, you know, knowing how to write a quote, a bid, you know, going for that public art grant and stuff. You know, you really do. Oh, marketing, you know, nowadays, luckily with social media, if, you know, younger kids, younger than me, you know, because I'm from the 1800s apparently.
Like, where's your TikTok?
What's that?
Where's your TikTok?
I know, right? You know, it's just like, yeah, where's my TikTok? I still don't understand what that is. I saw it and hopped on Snapchat. I got a Snapchat account. I have no idea how to use it. I do have a Marco Polo account, but I use that to talk to, family. When I, when you want to leave a video message, with family, but not actually talk to them. You know? So
yes.
I do that. That's, I guess, as closest to Snapchat I've gotten. But yeah, there's an amazing amount, you know, with these internet tools like Zoom here. What an amazing way to connect people and also, you know, promote what you're doing. I mean, yeah, technically that's not unlike
Absolutely.
what we're doing. We're talking about, you know, our craft and what we work. And in a way, that's a sense of promoting ourselves. And, you know, it also lends to our immortality too, if you really kind of think about it, because, you know, the digital, you know, fingerprint of this, you know, will eventually live on online whenever you upload this. So beware, Tamika.
I just figure
Hell
all my
Satan.
stuff's online anyway. I figure all my stuff's online anyway, so that helps me
Right.
not to freak out
Right.
about like silly stuff I might have said or done or you know, any of those things. So I just figure it's there. And then the interesting thing about the internet too, and I hope I get to interview her again. I actually have a backlog of interviews that I was supposed to write, and for multiple different reasons, like the you know, the venues or whatever were hard to access, or I became too busy. And, you know, like we're talking about like this, like sustaining ourselves thing. And it's gotten to a point where I definitely have to put the money stuff at the top, and it's harder and harder to do free work, you know? And I do deem the free work as important too, because there are publications I want to support. And also, you know, there are these interviews I've promised and like a lot of times passing, but this person was talking about the internet generally and how there are multiple versions of the internet, something most people don't think about, right? Even though we get updates constantly. And so things get lost. And it's difficult to excavate them because the people with the skills who could excavate them and preserve them in a certain way, a lot of times are, you know, they're doing jobs to pay the bills. So like, it's a lot of internet languages and stuff are being lost. I know we have the Internet Archive, and that does a pretty good job of, you know, kind of preserving certain things. It's like a digital museum, but not everything is there, you know. But I don't know. I figure it's there somewhere, somehow. But let's see. What was I trying to get to? Like she was talking about. So there is like electronic literature, like community, and it's interesting.
Little chat rooms, MySpace and stuff.
I mean, I think
talk about
sometimes
social platforms.
yeah, I think sometimes those things are part of electronic literature. Like you can go on these amazing kind of scavenger hunts sometimes, and what happens is like, you know, like maybe this link goes to an old link for a hawk's nest, like shit like that. But sometimes you get a 404 error, or like things disappear, become ghosts, and like because the internet is just constantly changing, you know. Someone forgot to pay their web domain.
Right.
So it's kind of but also like it's just interesting to think about. Like I think most of us think about the internet as being eternal, but really it's kind of ephemeral, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I guess you'd have to know how to mine and where to excavate. I think what you're referring to as well kind of reminds me of geology in general, like archaeology or paleontology. If you really want to go deep, because you can go mining for something and you might not hit anything. Or you can, with geology, you can excavate and go down and see all the different layers and how things measured up and where, stuff, you see the footprint of, how time and heat and pressure kind of, made the formations. So yeah, I guess I think in that respects, yeah, you're definitely right. It's a bit of a living organism where things are constantly changing. Maybe some of those links are is like if you want to look at it as a superorganism, you know, those links that have the errors, you know, that's it shedding its cells, because every 7 years it's a new organism. Not in the literal sense, you know, because I don't know,
Right.
you know, I'm sure as a tool like the internet, as it progresses and expands, and yeah, and you've got the AI aspects, and you know, and it works in ways, it starts working in ways that we haven't figured out, or it ends up being designed in ways we haven't you know, foreseen. In the generations to come, like in my nieces and nephews' generation, it might end up being something completely different. It morphs into something else, you know. Maybe it's maybe it, you know, there's an actual aspect where it, you know, the devices are actually bioorganic, you know. Maybe they are implants, you know.
Well, I mean, we're heading that direction. Elon Musk just tested out, is it the Neuralink, I think it's called, in pigs. It's like a little thing you can put in your brain. And it's supposed to help with, like, I think bodily regulation, memory. You know, you can plug all your music up in there, so it'll just be in your brain. So like it's cool technology. It's a little, there's some part of me that's a little frightened of it, but I feel like that is the direction we're going. Is it's moving from wearable tech to, we're just gonna be part, you know, cyborgy. I feel like that's definitely the direction we're going.
Well, and I think it's natural to be, you know, fearful of new technologies and stuff. I think because that's I think that's healthy. Yeah, to be cautious. You know, when I was in art school, I didn't know what an email was.
Oh shit.
Yeah, this was back in the 90s, and all of a sudden I got assigned an email. This is like my last trimester at RMCAD. I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna use this for? You know, I didn't have a cell phone. I mean, back then you didn't have, most people didn't have cell phones.
Maybe a pager if you were that cool. Or,
what's that?
I said maybe a pager if you were that cool, or.
Oh yeah, I looked at, I was like, well, I'm not a doctor or a drug dealer, so what do I need a pager for? So, so I thought that was, you know, I've grown and appreciate having, you know, this piece of technology here. I mean, this stuff is amazing. And my laptop that I'm talking to you on right now, I think, you know, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought anything, you know, I was like, what? The personal computer, I mean, that was something that was introduced to me in the 80s.
Right.
You know, when we were learning how to type, trying to learn how to type. I never learned how to type. I typed like this. My uncle Rob, who's a librarian, would watch me, and he just like roll his head and just like, what's wrong with this child? And it's like, I'm creative.
When you were saying that, I was thinking of the Jetsons. Like, this is straight up Jetsons. Like, right before I talked, I was like, oh God, I got to do my hair. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like to get on video.
I think
all the sci-fi is happening now.
Yeah, all the sci-fi stuff is happening. We're already, in some respects, you know, above and beyond where Star Trek is. Like, their communicators and stuff, they would have these little handheld. It's like, no, we got a world right here. Or, you know, anything we want. You know,
now we're getting Neuralink.
Yeah, now we're gonna get Neuralink.
It's like, catch up, Star Trek.
Yeah, where are you? It's like, obviously the space travel
stuff. Flip phones are for Luddites.
You know, Luddites. Yeah, the space travel stuff, and you know, the democracy levels are incredibly, you know, more progressed. I think, didn't they also like do away with, you know, basically like almost economic needs, like.
Oh wow.
Because I thought that was something that I kind of picked up on, and they commented on, I think, in like the Picard series or something. I might be wrong. Whoever's watching this, that's really into Star Trek, let us know. Inform to and myself, because I might be just barking up the wrong tree on that one. But
it makes sense though, because like what I remember of Star Trek, even like Captain Kirk era, it just seemed like, you do have someone in charge, but he doesn't necessarily seem more important than anyone on board. And like, it seems like everyone's pretty content for the most part. Like they have all their needs taken care of.
Right.
And it seems like they have, really particular ethics about like, how do we enter into these different worlds? I mean, Kirk is a little different, but like
a little bit more gung ho, right?
His ethics bend a little bit, but
yeah. He's an ethics bender. Sometimes he's on a bender.
That seems like it.
And then sometimes, we really appreciate Bender from Futurama. Everybody loves a good alcoholic robot.
I mean, he's kind of the reason why he's a drunk alcoholic robot is because, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Keep things lubricated,
Keeps them lubricated.
That's, otherwise the joints rust out, and alcohol is just another, can be another form of oil-based products. It's a nice alternative instead of oil. But you think by then, he wouldn't be operating on something so well, so obsolete, so antiquated, which kind of takes me back to an idea I've been playing around with. It's like we're still a society, when we're talking about like, the advances of Star Trek and how like this is ahead of Star Trek, but we're still driving around in combustion vehicles on fossil fuel from technology that's well over 100 years old. I find that just, I find it sad. I find it incredibly pathetic that we still do that. We've had, battery technology for vehicles since the 60s, and only in the last 25 years have we been really able to advance a lot of that. I know a lot of oil companies bought patents for, to buy out the competition, of course, for those battery driven cars back in the 60s. They could have been, and they probably have in secret, knowing them, but they could have really been advancing it, developing it, and slowly releasing it into the marketplace, and then kind of taking that over. I think at this point, had they done that, they could have been making extremely more, so much more money than they are now. And they're making billions and billions, and if not maybe $1 trillion, internationally in the oil market. But if they would have started that, I mean, you talk about diversifying revenue streams. That's what you should be doing, and they're really not. They're only diversifying within that market of oil and gasoline, which means
as if that's the end all be all. Well, it is kind of the end all be all, because if we keep doing that shit, we're dead. So like, there's that.
Yeah, it's very finite.
That's the direction we're heading.
Yeah, and I get the idea of like, well, we got to make as much money as we can right now. That's the mindset that corporate America goes on. And and you're right, by sticking to that, we're not planning ahead. There's no footprint for planning ahead. To some extent, we used to do that, both in capitalist markets, but also in government. And I mean, it was small and incremental, but it's not like where it is now, where it's just to a complete stop. I don't feel like there's any progress being made on the government level, and the only progress that's being made is being handed off to these this oligarch, this capitalist society. So it's very, I find it sad and infuriating, And we could be doing so much more. I know there's a lot of people out there, like, I know Elon Musk was doing some stuff, but I think there's work to be done on that. So it's, anyway. So now I'm meandering. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I mean, I've been holding a question. I'm like, I want to listen. I'm listening too, but like the question I want to get back to.
You probably shouldn't listen to me much. I'm just
you
delirious old man.
You have really good points because, like, I just want to round it back into horror, because we like live in this world where we've caught up with a lot of the sci-fi from our canon. And it's also very horrific. Like, it's this weird, strange, like, parallel universe thought we'd ever be. And like I feel like all these things are converging, like the absolute abject horror, and then also like living in this world that's very sci-fi. Like how does that conjunct with like the work you're doing and the thinking you're doing in that work? Because all this shit affects us.
Right. Well, it's I don't know if it's so much anything that I'm doing, because like I said, I'm working on children's stuff, and any I don't really granted I'm working on a horror convention, but I mean that got postponed because we're living in a pandemic, which I think brings us to your point. It's like we are living in one of those post-apocalyptic films. And, those films are usually like, excuse me, coffee bilge. Those films are usually like 90 minutes to 2 hours of just, action pack and zombies and plague and conspiratorial military stuff. Well, I mean, to some point that is happening. It's just more longer and drawn out. And so, for like myself, we're essentially assigned to stay in the house if you want to, respect the notion of not transmitting a disease, and just have that respect for your fellow men. What an easy way to deal with the zombie apocalypse. Stay home. Stay the fuck home. And if you're out in public, wear a fucking mask. Easy. And instead, it's politicized, and it's just like it's the dumbest fucking thing. So I have gotten into conversations with people, and it's just like, oh well, it's the government's thing trying to control you. I'm just like, and then there's a debate.
Yeah, but do you want to make that gamble?
You know what
I mean?
Well, they come back at you and say, well, there's a debate on the effectiveness of masks. So I'm like, no, there isn't. The science is sound. Anything you put over your mouth, to disrupt those particulates is helpful.
Right.
Just do it.
Right.
If you want to debate with me, you are not worth my time. You just aren't.
Right. They're fucking stats, man.
If you want to cry that you're being inconvenienced, go talk to somebody else who might give a shit. Because I don't. I really don't. When you start debating that, I'm wearing a mask to protect, anything I might be carrying from attaching itself to you. If you can't do that, with regard to me, fine. I know you won't I know you won't respect me.
Right.
Therefore, I cannot be around you.
Right.
Until this thing either blows over, which it won't, or we get some type of treatment or a vaccine, not in the timeline that number 45 says.
Right.
Something that's actually tested and actually works.
But we can just insert bleach into our veins, or what was it? Anyway, I don't even want to get into that because I get so angry. If he says something, he's not worth my time. He has no answers. He's just a little child with temper tantrums, and you can pretty much deconstruct him all you want. But anyway, he's not going to be any type of solution for anybody.
even the people that like him and admire him. I mean, it's a cult of personality. You know, I feel bad for those people. But I mean, when I was like 9 or 10 years old, I saw him and his second wife, Marla Maple, on the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, hosted by Robin Leach. You know, my sense was, oh, this guy's a jerk, you know, and you know, he's a rich prick and an asshole. And you know, up until the election, that's pretty much how I viewed him. I mean, nothing he ever did in the public ever changed that. It's just, you know, my opinion of him got incredibly less. You know, now he's a petty little dictator, and has really disrupted a lot of those. So, politics, so much fun, huh?
Yeah. I usually try to steer clear of it a little bit, but I mean, it is what's going on, and it's definitely affecting us. And I know that I am confused, especially people I care about, especially people I grew up with who, you know, support Trump. It's very confusing to me because it's like, that dude doesn't give a shit about us. Like, we're not, you know, the only way we're going to increase it, he cares about us in a way that we can increase his profit margin by going back to work and, like, you know, keeping the economy afloat. So, like, you know, running it like a business that only consumes and makes the top upper echelon, you know, their money, and maybe some of the stockholders, but like, that's not the rest of us. The rest of us are making our piddling amounts, you know, living paycheck to paycheck, and that's how they want it. I really hope that system's breaking down. It's just like, you know, we're really getting a look at what it really is, and a lot of us have known for a long time it's been broken, but now we really get to see it. Because if it wasn't broken, you know, we wouldn't see those red dives on the Dow every single day, pretty much. So
it exposes the cracks. We get to see it for what it is. It's, you know, that is one of the few privileges that we get to experience right now. Is even though everybody's in dire straits, we get to see the holes. You know, you know, we can easily compare ourselves to how other countries are dealing with pandemics. You know, most other countries are doing much better. You know, in the pandemic, had we had that pandemic apparatus that this administration, you know, decided to do away with, you know, back in 2018, we probably would have had some type of blueprint for a plan and you know, things in place and the stockpiles in place. But we didn't, because at the time, you know, they wanted to save a few $1 million. I think it was like $200 million. Well, we've lost trillions. But that's not even worse.
Like $200 million in the grand scheme of things is like nothing, you know, in the grand scheme of things. So
so, you know, and you know, not only that, but it's also cost 160,000 plus lives, and it's still going to go up. And I think by the end of the year, we're going to be close to 300,000 lives lost. At least.
And I'm scared, you know, every day. I'm an essential worker in some respects, and I also use mass transit, and there are varying degrees of people taking this seriously, and it's stressful. It is stressful, you know. Like, I try to have an honest talk with everyone I come into contact with, or thinking about, you know, like, this is what I'm doing. And I need you to make an informed decision. And I'm lonely, so like,
no,
you know, so like, it's like, I think that's one of the things I love about this time is it's making, you know, these conversations about consent that we've been having for a really long time, it's really making those come to the fore for a lot of us, in really real ways. It's like we have to be more upfront with each other, if we really are respecting each other, and, you know, kind of not wanting to kill people, because that's kind of what it looks like, which is really frightening.
It's very clear that the federal government, and to some extent local government, have no interest in investing in their people. Their concern, in a lot of areas is just the economy, not its people. So that's very frustrating. I think that's also expanded upon. It's also a great time, with those cracks being presented, to address, police violence against, Black people. It's like, if there's any time to change the system, it's now. When everything is exposed, when that soft underbelly, it's like, get out there, and let's change it for all our Black friends and family. And it's like, as a community, they're telling us this shit is happening. We have to pay attention. The federal government doesn't seem to give two shits. Not once have I heard about, really addressing like systematic issues with, massive overhaul.
Well, I mean, in the news today, there was a statement about, what was it, about how essentially like equity work in organizations and stuff is deemed un-American. So that's essentially saying, hey, we like our racism, we like our ableism, etc. Like whatever ism, just put it in there. We like that. That's essentially, that's the message I'm receiving from that message from our current administration. That equity work isn't going to stop. It's still going to happen because all the people I know in the field are very adamant and very strong-willed and very passionate about this work, and it has caught on enough where I think people are going to be teaching each other anyway. We're still having these conversations. So I saw that and I'm like, at first I get real fucking angry, and then I'm like, it's gonna be okay. Like, I mean, maybe it's not gonna be okay, but it's still gonna happen. And it's like, a big enough issue where we're going to be out here like risking our lives, which is already happening anyway, but risking our lives even more, like trying to make these changes because they're very important.
I would say too, to that effect, hold on to that anger.
I'm like the Hulk, Dan. I'm like the Hulk. I'm like Bruce Banner. I am always fucking angry. And sometimes I monster out, and I have good friends around me to like, help me not destroy all the buildings. So like, that anger is definitely there.
I think like as a white person, like, we need to be angry with you, and we need to continue. Like, these conversations are great, but we need to constantly just be hammering on that system to affect change. I think, with this upcoming election, we need to put somebody, in the administration that we can work with. Right now, what's there, we can't work with. It's just dead weight, and that person cannot relate to other people. I mean, it's really unfortunate. I hate to say this because I'm not a big fan of the guy, but somebody like George W. Bush, you could actually work with him. He's an idiot.
This is true.
He led a lot of people to death by going on a falsified, cause for war. I would argue 2 wars, but definitely in the Iraq War, we didn't need to be there. But you could actually approach him, and there would be some level of negotiation.
Here, and there was some degree of he wasn't a static character either. I feel like Trump is a static character, and like Bush, there were some things at some point where he kind of reneged on his former ideas, I feel like, and that was interesting to me. I was just like, that's interesting. Like, you don't see that often. And so I really appreciated. I mean, I'm still not a Bush fan, but like, that signified, the ability to grow, and like you said, the ability to be able to work with him too, because it's not just, a certain party's voice that needs to be prevalent. Everyone has the same kind of basic needs and wants.
Right.
And learning how to speak with each group is like, I feel like that's what our politicians should be doing. I mean, because technically they're kind of civil servants, or supposed to be. Am I misunderstanding that?
No, they are supposed to be civil servants. That's the idea, but they go in and work for corporations. That's
Right.
that's a big part of like campaign finance is, you know, they're meeting with donors and you know, CPACs, and a lot of that money comes from these corporations. You know, that's really unfortunate. So you know,
Yeah.
you know, based on that, you already know who all sides really work for. You know, there are platforms, there are politicians that, you know, only take finance from, you know, the public, you know, from private citizens. You know, so you got like those, I think, well, you got like Bernie Sanders, and then I think, yeah, I think AOC also did that. You know, I'm sure somebody out there, you know, can, that's watching this can certainly correct me and educate me, because, but that's my understanding.
Yeah.
So yeah, once they get into office, that you know who they're working for, you know, based off of where the money came from.
And that's the problem. Like, corporations are essentially psychopathic entities. So like, if you look at psychopathy and you look at a corporation, those things are the same. And like we, you know, paths aren't good for us. They don't care about shit. So like, why are we doing this? Yeah.
Yeah, and initially with the business and you know, corporation, somebody that produces a product or a service, the idea is that they're supposed to, you know, provide some kind of public good through that product or through that service.
Right.
But if their actual function is to just make money, that right there by itself is morally in conflict with any type of public good. So I would be very suspect to pretty much anything out there. You know, there's certainly products that exploit what the public needs. So, like for instance, we were talking about Elon Musk. You know, so Tesla has the electric car and everything. They're exploiting a market and a need, and you know, and that's fine. It does work to the public good. Price point is ridiculous. You know, parts and service on that is ridiculous because, you know, they own everything. And essentially, you know, with that, the idea is like you don't have to replace parts on that because it's not a combustion engine. But they still own everything. So if you have a problem with that vehicle, you can only take it to Tesla. So and in some states there are laws that favor that. It might be a federal level too. There's protections for the company.
Yeah.
But not for the public consumer. In that regards.
So that's been changing because I know.
Yeah, I've been following a couple mechanics on something like YouTube, showing you how to work on your own Tesla car, you know, and every now and then you get those messages. Oh, we just got slapped with a restraining order or a cease and desist.
Could you repeat that? I'm so sorry. Could you repeat that? Because it got all garbly.
Oh no, on your end. Okay, so one of the things, you know, like with Tesla, I've been following some mechanics on YouTube that work on Tesla cars. They've been educating themselves on how to work on these cars because technically they're not supposed to. And you know, if you have a problem,
I was gonna say.
Yeah, if you have a problem with your vehicle,
people are gonna figure it out.
Right, you're supposed to legally take it to Tesla. and since it's not a combustion engine and there's not a lot of parts really to work on, you know, that's where you're supposed to go. But they've been figuring out how to, you know, workarounds and how to work on those pieces of equipment. But the legislation, the laws are technically in favor of Tesla, so there's no like consumer protections, like you can't work on your own vehicle if it's a Tesla, so to speak. It's really weird. I think it differs from state to state, but I think there might be an overarching federal aspect to it too. So there's people working to change that, and every now and then you see these mechanics on YouTube, they get a cease and desist. You know, you gotta stop working on our Tesla vehicle. How dare you? You gotta bring it into our shop, and only our shop. So it's, you know, if you're a business, it's a good way to protect your you know, your product. You know, I get it. It might end up being like an extra revenue stream too, but for the, you know, for the layperson, you know, for the consumer, it doesn't really work to your advantage. You know, stuff like that. But anyway, I think I'm probably meandering at this point.
That's okay, because like, you know, like it's actually leading to my next question that I was just thinking about. Like, you know, it's apparent things are pretty broken and fucked up, and like I want to know what you feel the role of art is in this dystopia, even if it's just entertainment. Yeah.
In terms of art during this time, yeah, entertainment's great. But it's also a fantastic tool to reflect, you know, what society is, where society is, you know, the cracks in society, the things that need to be, you know, fixed or broken. The genre of horror is very good for that. Just watching all the pandemic movies. I mean, they've been building up for that. George Romero is onto something. At the same time, too, it's a great coping mechanism to deliver culture, whatever form that takes, whether it's, you know, music or film, or, you know, maybe it's a virtual theater like this. This is a kind of theater. This is wonderful, you know. This is a wonderful, you know, conversation too. Conversations are too. Anything in your world, and this kind of like rolls into something bigger that I've been thinking about, is like our whole world is designed. It's engineered, it's designed. You have creative people, both artists and engineers and mechanics, you name it, craftsmen. They make our world. We make our world. We give, you know, people art. We give them the reason to live. So that, you know, that song by Billie Eilish that everybody really likes, you know, that's another reason to live. The next film coming out, the Lovecraft Country episode that, you know, Elise and I can't wait to see. You know, that's another reason to live. The house that got built, another reason to live. The sidewalk, you know, that gets installed. Somebody had to design that. Somebody had to build it. It's somewhat, yeah, it's engineered, it's ergonomically designed, but it makes things easier to traverse, you know, through your town and everything. Your whole world is engineered. It's designed. It's, you know, so I think, you know, that should be something that's a little bit more appreciated. You know, when you start losing that, what is there to really live for? I guess you can live for each other, but what's there to connect on? You know, is it just fucking? I mean, that's great too.
I mean, it's not sustainable. Something you learn when you get older is like, you can't just fuck all the time. It's just your
I
body's
guess
just like, no.
yeah, I guess that could be, yeah, interesting, but you know, creative in its own right. But
Yeah. Like,
but I'm just, you know, just, you know, getting to that point of, you know, everything that we've ever known has been, you know, creative. That's our whole society. You know, we don't appreciate this. We don't appreciate these books. You know,
right.
this bookshelf. Everything's been made for us, and we don't, you know, take a lot of stock. We got to take a little bit more responsibility in our world and how we handle it. How we handle, you know, making that stuff, you know, delivering you know, interacting with our culture as well as the earth itself. I mean, everything
Yeah.
does feed back into a massive loop.
Yeah.
And you know, I can't help but feel I'm probably talking in circles, and maybe I'm becoming a little
No,
esoteric myself.
I'm a professor too, and I think about this because a lot of the students who come into my classes right now, because I'm not teaching creative writing right now, I have to publish some books first, and then maybe I can enter into that arena. But like right now, I'm teaching like entry level English composition and research classes, a lot of tech students and related fields, and they don't think they're creative people, and they are in that mindset of learning how like all the things work so that they can be pulled together to make something. So I think about these things a lot more and more. It's like the things that the whole humanities universe has to offer are invaluable, and we're often being squashed down, especially in academia, because like I think the world of academia is changing to be more slanted towards you know, helping people do their career. So like that's what schools seem to be becoming. But I feel like if we don't include things like even Elon Musk, I don't know a lot about him, but I'm learning more partially because of the students I get to work with, because they're obsessed with him. He uses a lot of sci-fi elements and titles and things, so he's enamored of that world too, you know. And so like the humanities can really help us. I think now I'm talking in circles a little bit, but like there are certain things it offers. So like the world of philosophy and writing and things, and it teaches us to query our personal standing and our standing in the world. So there are things like thought experiments, which I'm mildly obsessed with right now, and essentially it like breaks down your thinking process because like there's the trolley problem, for example. You have two tracks, trains coming on each one, and you can save one and not the other. And there's one person on one track, maybe it's someone, you know, or something, and there are 5 people on the other track. There's like variations of it, or maybe that one person is like the only person who can save the universe, whatever. And there are choices that someone can make, you know. It's like you change the track to hit the 5 people or the 1, or maybe you just walk away because it's too fucking much and you're just like, you know what, not my monkeys, not my service, bye. Like or circus, not service, but like each choice presents an ethical dilemma, an ethical, like, you know, something really bad. And so that's what thought experiments do, is it like actually makes you think about like all of these strange situations that hopefully we'll never have to make, but sometimes people do end up being in these ethical situations because our morality isn't going to be taken away from, you know, our ethical standing, like whether we're working for a corporation or within lines of a certain career. Like we still have all the things we came to the table with. So like I don't know, I'm thinking about this stuff more and more.
But like you were talking about, you know, the psychology of a corporation earlier.
Mm-hmm.
When you come to a corporation, you've got a certain standard of morals. But you know, you come to these situations, maybe your boss is a sociopath, which, you know, it's a prevalent thing within
To
the
make it work, you probably have to be a sociopath. I mean,
yeah, that's
the
right.
scary thing. Yeah.
And to be able to work under this person to some degree, you might have to be flexible within your moral systems. And then, you know, you perhaps for a while you sit there and you have to justify it to yourself. I can't believe I did X, Y, or Z, or geez, I have to do X, Y, or Z in order to complete this task, and it doesn't fit in certain, maybe you're crossing a legal line or something like that to get the job done. And eventually, you know, sometimes you don't self-reflect. You stop doing it if you do it enough. But that, yeah, but it's something.
And I do worry about that. But
yeah, I think with the idea of like your thought experiments, you know, that's a good way to approach that. It's like, what is the moral dilemma? What are you willing to live with? Because everything's got a cost. Do you save the 20 people on the track? Do you save the one guy? Is the one guy Spider-Man? Is he going to save people later on in the world? And then you ask, what the fuck is wrong with you, Spider-Man? Get off the fucking track. I'm saving these 5.
Right? Come on, dude. What's
Stupid
going
Pete
on?
Parker.
So
kid.
I love this talk. I'm like, thank you for this so much. And I do need to close it up pretty soon.
Okay. Sure.
But I wanna take it back to like the things that you're doing. You do like an incredibly huge amount of things, like Camp Crash happened, your Talking Pellets show, you were talking about, was it a podcast in relation to Psycho, or what was it? Like there was something.
We'll be so this Tuesday on our Facebook page, you know, for the Colorado Festival of Horror. It's facebook.com/COFOH Horror. We've been doing all our programming online. You know, I've been doing interviews like this. Definitely nothing nearly as political, you know, or maybe a little social commentary, but more in the vein of like horror fandom on that platform.
Yeah.
You know, we'll be hosting a 60th anniversary of Psycho panel, because the 60th anniversary is coming up, I believe, on September 8th. And that's when we're going to be hosting this. It'll be 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We'll be doing a live panel, and everybody's going to call in. And so I'll be moderating, but we've got some amazing guests. We've got Teresa Mercado from Scream here in Denver.
Okay.
And then Robert Moratori, he's a cinematographer for the documentary 7852, which is it's a whole documentary specifically about the shower scene in Psycho. So,
what?
Yeah.
Whoa, a whole documentary about this.
It is. It's a wonderful conversation piece. So if you want, you know,
documentary coming out, I want to see that.
It's already out. You can get it on Blu-ray. Okay. I think it's probably streaming. You can probably find it on Amazon streaming.
Okay. Do you know the title of it? Sorry, I'm like really interested in this.
78/52. And it's in relation to the number of cuts and shot changes.
Okay.
For that scene.
Wow.
And I can't remember which is, you know, the cuts, and which is, you know, the shot changes, you know, the different camera angles for that scene. But yeah, it's a, you know, if you're into film theory and technical work, as well as, you know, some of the thematic stuff, I mean, it is meaty. It's really good. Definitely have your coffee when you watch it. You know, coffee. Coffee is the elixir of life.
Oh shit, you're making me. What's that?
I said
coffee is the
elixir of life.
I have water in my cup.
It is also the fuel that excellent that you know, feeds revolutions.
Yeah, I can dig that. I always call it go juice. So
that's right.
Well, what else are you doing? What else are you doing?
So let's see what else I'm doing. We're still working on the Stanley Kaiju comic book, the children's comic. So that's that's been a lot of fun. Elise is starting to write the second issue.
Awesome.
And we're just doing a lot of online programming for the Colorado Festival of Horror. I'm really digging the programming. I'm trying to bring in more people outside of our immediate circle to host and program some of that stuff. So it's not just me, because I am boring as shit. And I do like hosting interviews on my my own platform. It's also on Facebook. I'm so old. I do so much stuff that just streams to Facebook, and then the stuff gets carried over to YouTube a little bit later. But all my Talking Palette stuff come October will switch over to just being called Cafe Crash.
Cool.
So yeah, because obviously coffee is a big part of my life. Not so much Satan, it's just cool, and Satan has all the better records, right? Because you got to keep music evil,
I've been listening to a lot of metal lately, and I'm just
really?
this is so good that I'm like, oh shit, it's Satan music. And then I'm like, well, I mean, he's part of the community, I guess. So
right. Well, Elise turned me on to that Eurovision movie on Netflix with Will Ferrell or Will Ferrell, and then Rachel McAdams. And I thought that was so fun, and it's charming. It's very cute. And then I'm just like, oh, wait a minute. There's a band back in 2006. It's a heavy metal, like gore fest type band.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
I won it. And
who is it?
The band's called Lordy. It's like Guar, but less blood being shot out into the crowd. Less fake bodily fluids. Still horror themed and everything, and they won it. And so I was introducing her to that. And then later on in the movie, all these winners of Eurovision made cameos, and Lordy made a cameo too. I was like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. So it's interesting that like heavy metal and all that. It's like punk music, rap, all those things that used to be fringe. They're the mainstay. They're entered into our homes. Our kids listen to it. I listen to it. It's fun. I don't think there's too much that should be taboo as far as like how we consume, or not how we consume, but as far as the media that we consume. Snuff films and child pornography. That is taboo. Do not do that. That is awful. You are a terrible human being if you.
It's not just taboo. It's yeah. Thanks for clarifying there.
Yeah. That's there are boundaries still. So, but I'm just saying, like, as far as like that stuff, it's like you don't need to be afraid of this stuff. It's fine. If anything, the Christian housewife next door, she's a Satanist.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, I know a lot of Satanists actually. And they, have some really good points, and they're like, they just want people to think critically.
I think they're better moral people,
Yeah. A lot of activism and stuff happening there. Will you send me links to all the things? I'll bug you too, so that I can post them at the... Cool. Anything you'd like to add?
Feel free to catch me on Facebook. My personal page is facebook.com/Daniel R. Crosier, last name Crosier. You can also follow me on Instagram, Instagram.com/Daniel_Crosier. I'm on Twitter, pretty much the same thing. You can Google me. I'm sure you'll find dirt on me, stuff that hasn't gone away in previous generations of the internet. Stuff that I'm sure will resurface and haunt me, that's fine. You know,
We all get to be whole people.
yeah, that's a good way. You know, it's like, oh, look at all these shades of gray that Dan actually is. It's like, well, I never said I was, you know, perfect or a peach, you know. So, but yeah. So thanks, Tamika, for having me on the show, and I'm so sorry
Thank
for
you
my
so much.
meanderings.
No, I love it because that's how my brain works. Like I always say, my brain works like a pinball machine with teleportation stations. It's like woo, and then of course
Right.
there are like overlapping Venn diagrams of pinball machines in different dimensions. So yeah, that's pretty much how my brain works. So I get it. That's fine. And then squirrels. All right, I'm gonna close this up.
All right, sounds good.